years, ADB has focused on cross-border infrastructure, trade integration, financial links, and regional public goods.
This is a time to reflect upon the lessons and best practices from the history, not only in the Asia and beyond. But talking about the Asian economic history, probably the open economy and the rapid technology diffusion and the investment in infrastructure and human capital propelled the Asia and the Pacific from the rather low income status to the sort of the global manufacturing diversified hub.
ADB actively promotes regional cooperation through various programs, including the Greater Mekong Sub-Region, South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation, and Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation.
Over the years, CAREC has been very conducive to improving connectivity and Georgia's trade facilitation mechanisms, reducing barriers to trade and enhancing regional economic integration. Hereby, I wish to highlight the East-West Highway Improvement Project. Once finalized, this project will significantly facilitate and promote trade activities towards sustainable connectivity along the entire region.
ADB's Strategy 2030 prioritizes regional cooperation, addressing challenges like pollution, climate change, pandemics, and financial shocks.
Reforms are needed to create more competitive markets through public sector governance, regulatory reform, corporate law and competition policy, strengthening economic and legal infrastructure, and the ease of doing business. All of these issues need to be addressed together. Both the policies as well as how they are implemented need to be done in a holistic and coherent manner.
Recently, ADB's Independent Evaluation Department evaluated ADB's support for regional cooperation and integration. The report says that while ADB has made notable progress in developing regional infrastructure connectivity, significant obstacles remain in enhancing regional competitiveness and delivering public goods.
There are many issues, harmonization or even the territorial disputes. So we are talking also directly to the individual countries, from the prime minister level to the local people level. We are in a sense regarded as a trusted partner of choice. And in this difficult situation, maybe our neutrality, political neutrality, and the trust interested by the countries will be giving us a power to convene and make a platform for the regional cooperation beyond the continent.
In today's world of rising geopolitical tensions, rapid technological shifts, and worsening climate risk, regional cooperation in Asia is more critical than ever. Our region's diversity is a strength, but only if we harness it through deeper collaboration. No country can tackle challenges like climate disasters, supply chain disruptions, or digital divides alone. These are shared problems that demand shared solutions. Regional cooperation allows us to pool resources, exchange knowledge, and scale innovations faster and more effectively than isolated efforts ever could. To move forward, we must modernize trade frameworks, strengthen regional financing tools, and build inclusive partnerships that bring together governments, businesses, and civil society. More than ever, we need platforms for dialogue, trust, and collective action. Asia's future will not be shaped by individual ambition alone, but by how well we work together with consistency, purpose, and unity.
By strengthening regional cooperation, we can unlock new opportunities and navigate uncertain times together. ensuring a resilient and prosperous future for Asia and the Pacific.
Right, so you saw President Kanda talk about the importance of regional cooperation. If we delve into history, near and far away as well, I mean, you look at the Silk Route trade and how it benefited, not just trade, but also exchange of knowledge, technology. Recently, we look at the EU and their, experiences at regional cooperation. There's a lot to learn from history as well. So we will delve into all of that. But first, as I said, I'm from ADB's Independent Evaluation Department. And as you saw in the video, we recently conducted an evaluation of ADB's attempts at regional cooperation. So I'll call on the stage the author of this evaluation, Hao-Chi Hong, to make a presentation. And that will give you some of the insights into what is working, what can be done better. And then we'll take this event forward. Hao-Chi?
Thanks, Saliha. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to present the main findings of IED's evaluations of ADB regional cooperation initiatives and operations. Regional cooperation offers tremendous economic and social benefits and is an important part of ADB's strategic priorities, as highlighted in the video that we just watched. To start with, here is a brief overview of the background, purpose, and scope. Over the past several years, IED completed 3 evaluations of ADB's 3 largest sub-regional programs. The Greater Mekong Sub-Region Economic Cooperation Program, Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation Program, and the South Asia Sub-Regional Economic Cooperation Programs. These are 3 largest programs in terms of the number of ADB operations approved, as well as the total volume of ADB financing. So these 3 evaluations culminated in a synthesis assessment of all ADB regional cooperation operations and interventions. And this also included additional assessment of other ADB sub-regional programs and non-sub-regional RCI operations. So the presentation, we will focus mainly on the relevance and the effectiveness of ADB's RCI initiatives and interventions, and highlight the key lessons learned, drawing on findings from these evaluative studies. The main findings can be summarized as follows. ADB provided a generally effective support for the needed RCI institutional framework, especially for the major sub-regional programs. ADB's support for RCI made notable progress in helping improve regional infrastructure connectivity. ADB support for improving regional competitiveness and regional public goods are still part of an ongoing process, facing some specific challenges, have only shown some limited or modest results so far. ADB RCI strategies have been structured around 3 priorities: regional connectivity, regional competitiveness, and regional public goods. These priorities have been consistent over time, but also responsive to country needs. The three largest sub-regional programs aligned with ADB's overall RCI priorities. They also, at the same time, adapted to the needs of the respective sub-regions. ADB also supported 5 other sub-regional programs. These programs focused mostly on the needs for enhanced connectivity and competitiveness, but to a lesser extent on the need for regional public goods. In addition to that, ADB supported a large number of non-sub-regional individual RCI interventions. These interventions in general also aligned with the organizational strategic priorities. On effectiveness, ADB support for the largest sub-regional programs was most successful in improving regional connectivity, especially transport and energy connectivity. But no significant results have been observed so far in terms of removing the border bottlenecks and improving trade policies, removing trade barriers. And only limited progress has been observed in this respect. And also the regional public goods. ADB support for other sub-regional programs has not yet yielded tangible regional results so far. On the individual non-sub-regional operations, ADB support for financial cooperation schemes have contributed significantly to improving the macroeconomic and financial stability. But most other non-sub-regional operations have not achieved significant regional benefits, mainly due to the lack of regional focus in the design. Although the non-sub-regional operations offered significant potential in helping improving regional competitiveness. ADB provided instrumental support for the needed institutional framework for major sub-regional programs. This program has been, frameworks have been effective in facilitating cross-country dialogue and coordination. And the member countries appreciated ADB's support in this regard. Especially ADB's role as the honest broker, as the secretariat, as the technical advisor is appreciated by member countries. So some gaps remain. One is that the project-centric approach lacked adequate focus on the regional aspect of projects. The second is lack of strong operational guidance constrained the ability to enhance, to address the more complex and emerging priorities in the regional operations. Lastly, ADB's support has been effective in mobilizing ADB and government efforts. But on the other hand, coordination with development partners and other stakeholders need to be further strengthened to fully leverage the synergies going forward. So the lessons learned mainly related to the need to strengthen the management of RCI operations for greater effectiveness. First, there is a need to enhance the contribution of both sectoral and thematic expertise to regional departments and the secretariats managing regional programs. to promote the effective delivery of the more complex competitiveness and regional public goods agenda. Second, need to provide more guidance to operationalize ADB's ASEAN strategies, to incorporate the role of the non-sovereign operations in ASEAN, and also to coordinate ADB's support across different kinds of ASEAN initiatives. Third, strengthen support for critical non-infrastructure areas, especially trade facilitation and trade policies, environment and resilience, and the investment climate competition policy. Fourth, sharpen the focus on regional dimensions in projects to ensure they address significant sub-regional issues and deliver substantive regional benefits. Lastly, improve monitoring and evaluation of regional level results to improve the performance of ADB ASEAN operations. Thanks.
Right, so now it's time for the panel discussion, and you can see the panelists up there, but they are right now seated among the audience. I'll call their names, and then I'll request you to come and take your place on the stage. Let me start with Mr. Dhanucha Pichayanan. He is the Secretary General of the Office of the National Economic and Social Development Council, NESDC, Thailand, and National Coordinator for Thailand in the Greater Mekong Sub-Region Program. Very warm welcome to you. You can come and sit here, the first one, yes. And then we have Ayako Yamaguchi Ilio. She's Finance Secretary, Republic of Marshall Islands. Dr. Chul Chong, President of the Korea Economic Research Institute and Chief Research Officer of the Federation of Korean Industries. Dr. Chung also serves as co-chair of the Korea National Committee for Pacific Economic Cooperation. And we have Sergio Lugaresi, a very well-known name for all of us at ADB. He was a former executive director at ADB and a lot of experience in multilateral development banks and private sector. And we have the Director General of SDCC, that is Sustainable Development Climate Change Department at the Asian Development Bank, Bruno Carrasco. And to moderate the session, we have DG of the Independent Evaluation Department, Manny Jimenez. Manny, it's over to you now.
Thank you very much, Saleha, for a wonderful introduction to the topic and to the distinguished panel that we have. And thank you all for coming this morning, bright and early, to the first day of the ADB Annual Meetings for what we think is a very significant issue that is confronting the world. Just a couple of things to note. First of all, that we'll be conducting this session in a conversational manner. So I encourage my panel to be informal as possible. So we'll be referring to each other by our first names as they desired beforehand, and also to make sure that they can ask each other questions as well as entertain other questions from you, which we will do after about, I think we have about 35, 40 minutes or so for a conversation among ourselves on the issues that have been discussed. And then we will turn it over to Q&A from all of you in the audience. So please keep those questions in mind as we go on. You can either join the conversation through Pigeonhole, but I think we have enough room and time here to be able to have you be heard directly. We have microphones on the around the room. So thank you all. As you can tell, we have a distinguished panel that represents different perspectives on this issue. Perhaps the most important is the perspective from the developing member countries of the ADB. And I'd like to start off with them and their thoughts on regional cooperations and how we in the international community can help support you better. If I might start with a representative from Thailand, Danchan. As you saw from the presentation that Hao Chi had, that GMS, the Great American Subregion of which Thailand is a member, has been relatively more successful than the others in promoting regional cooperation, even beyond connectivity, but also competitiveness, and perhaps even regional public goods. Could you summarize some of the lessons that you see that made that more success possible, and what are some implications perhaps for some of the other regions in Asia? Danchan?
Thank you, Manny. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here today. Well, for the GMS Corporation, I think a little over 30 years now that we have this cooperation among countries in the Southeast Asian region. Well, from the question of Manny, I think there's a two success factor that I see is can make the GMS progress advance as today for over 30 years. The first one is that we stick with every country understand and stick with the three priorities area of the you may say three pillar of GMS cooperation, which the first one is connectivity. The second one is competitiveness, and the third one is community. I think each country have a mutual understanding of what we have to do to in line with these three pillars. And the second factor that make advance of the GMS today is that the top policy level, and especially the leader of each country, have a mutual understanding that we have to cooperate with each other to develop this region, because otherwise we need kind of stick as a group, and then we need to develop and work together within this three pillars. Then it leads to the huge investment for over 30 years on infrastructure, especially the infrastructure like road connectivity and bridge and road within other country that can link with others, and the border facility. But not only the physical infrastructure that have a huge investment, we do the cross-border facility and the measure how to have a free flow of goods and services and people within the region. So that's why we come up with a kind of harmonizing standard of the transport, cross-border transport, which is, of course, at the first implementation, we have some kind of a little bit of the problem from country to country. The readiness of the country in the region may not equal to each other, especially when you have to come up with a digital infrastructure. Some country can do it, some country cannot do it. And the working attitude of the let's say, it goes to be straight, the custom people, that somehow we need to open the cross-border facility for 24 hours to facilitate because we have over 30 years we see the supply chain linkage within the region, and we need to kind of facilitate the transport of supply from country to country. Then we introduce the 24 hours of the cross-border facility, but some country cannot do it. Some country ready to do it. But we need to understand each other and try to come up with a solution to solve this kind of problem. Yeah. So that's the way that I think why we are success on that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks very much, Danchan. Really important points. That really deep shared understanding is the first thing, and the second is sort of leadership from the top. is going to be critical. And the main issue is perhaps, and we'll come back to this actually, on the uneven implementation because our capacity is not uniform across all the countries. Ayako, if there's one region in Asia and the Pacific where regional cooperation may be so important, it's in the small, isolated countries, of which your country is one. And I know that there have been a lot of attempts to get them together. Can you reflect from the point of view of especially the Pacific Island countries, what are the challenges and opportunities for regional cooperation?
Thank you, Manny. Thank you also for the opportunity to be amongst these esteemed panelists today, and also, most importantly, for bringing the Pacific into the dialogue. In terms of regional cooperation, just for context, the distance it takes from me to travel to Rarotonga, from Majuro to Rarotonga in the Cook Islands, is the same distance it would take if one was to travel from Manila to Delhi. So although the Pacific Islands, if you hear about it, you're thinking it's very close, but we're vastly spread across the Pacific Ocean. To further put it into context, I am from the Marshall Islands. We are made up of 29 coral atolls and 5 islands spread across 2 million kilometer squares of ocean. And so regional cooperation in itself is very critical for our region. And we understand this, we realize this. In 1947, the first regional cooperation was established, formerly known as the South Pacific Community, now Pacific Community, or the SPC. And throughout the years, we've seen leaders wanting to build up on that regional cooperation, and the Pacific Island Leader Forum was established later. And just although we know and understand that our strength is in our numbers, we also know that there's still room for improvement. And so with this, the Pacific Island leaders have commenced a review on our regional architecture to see how we can further improve on that. In terms of the Marshall Islands, in our context, I think connectivity is an issue for us. I just mentioned 29 atolls spread across 2 million kilometer square of ocean. It's very difficult to have us connected digitally, but also physically. And in terms of looking at our sister island countries, the bigger ones, understanding how they were able to bridge themselves together is also something that we're regionally learning from each other. Of course, we have climate resilience that we're also a big player of, and we're actually the frontliners in terms of the effects of climate change. So regionally together, we bring a stronger fight into the global region, whereas individually, our voices would have been very muted. And so we understand that, and I think that's one of the the strengths of the Pacific nation is our regional cooperation, although of course there's still room for improvement, a lot of new things that we can learn from our bigger country sisters, especially the Asian countries, on how to build that, narrowing that gap for us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ayako, and thank you for bringing up this very important point. The regional cooperation in such a setting is so much more challenging than, say, the GMS, where you in fact have a common geographic factor, which is the Mekong River, that binds the countries together. And when you don't have that, it's got to be just so much more challenging. Chol, you're an academic as well as a policy practitioner and an overseer, and we all know what the benefits are of cooperation. If it's such a good idea, why don't we see enough of it? What are the practical challenges to implementing some of these issues from what you've studied?
All right, Manny, thank you very much for the very timely and important question. I think the overall the global development cooperation has lost its momentum, in a sense, and it seems like the regional cooperation is much more important, and ADB's role is very critical, I think. And there are, several challenges, practical challenges we could identify. First of all, many of us already know that the diversity in the political and economic systems in the area. Of course, there are the very different levels of the development and also institutional capacities and so on. And this, diversity actually also brings some, difficulties in terms of moving forward to the regional goals. Maybe some countries might be much more interested in their own country's interest. And then some countries are very much sensitive to the sovereignty issue. So actually, this might hinder the deeper institutional integration in the region. Third, I think there could be some asymmetric power relations in the region. And as you all know, that there are big countries and then small countries as well. And also the lack of the strong regional institutions. Of course, we have some regional institutions, but we need more leadership and also some sort of effective implementation is needed. And then there could be some other issues like some geopolitical tensions and fragmented regionalism. There are some institutions like the ADB, but there are ASEAN and RCEP and CPTPP, APEC, all kinds of different forums and the institutions we have. There could be some, duplication and inefficiency. So there should be some more of the coordination efforts. And then there are some capacity gaps and implementation challenges with this economic cooperation in the region. So I think the building trust and institutional mechanisms for dialogue and conflict resolution is crucial. And I think the ADB has a role for that.
Thanks very much, Shaul. And a point you raised about diversity, even within the regions, is something that both Ayako and Dani-chan brought up. I want to turn now to Sergio, because if there's one region where there's been a lot of success in integration, it's got to be Europe. And it's a model that we look forward to. And yet Europe also, I think, just in the past, 10, 15 years, expanded its membership. So you're much more diverse now than you used to be. And I was wondering if you have any reflections on how to address that diversity and how the EU's been able to respond to the issues that our colleagues have raised.
Thank you, Manny. So yes, it is maybe an experiment that is going on since almost 75 years ago. So it's quite long and has involved, as you said, many countries, increasing the number of countries over time. This is already highlight one difference with the Asian situation. So whereas Europe has tried to achieve more economic integration in a concentric way, with a core of countries that started 75 years ago and then increasing, Asia has a much diversified situation where there are, when I was on the board, I counted 23 cooperation agreements that are nested and overlap and even include some of the European countries and North American countries. So in a way, Asia as a more diversified is a very interesting experiment that in the future can, provide a lot of lessons. But in these 75 years of experience, I think the lessons we can draw are a couple. First of all, the motivation. Since the beginning, the motivation basically were two. One, to prevent future wars. We tend to forget this, but is a clear public good that was since the beginning and has remained over time a very important target. The European Union started as a European coal and steel community, 1951. So the countries decided to put together the industries that were at the core of the war economy. And the second one is to achieve, to pursue economic reconstruction after the war, trying to achieve, of course, more cooperation, economic cooperation. And this for a very simple reason, to exploit to build a common market of firstly for goods and services, to exploit the economies of scales and the comparative advantages that each country, different countries with different economic development could provide. And in 75 years, there were various stages. So it started with the construction of a common market for goods and services, as I said, but then it moved to free movement of persons, and then after free movement of person to the free movement of capital and the fixed exchange rate and the common currency. In this rich experience of ups and downs, several issues emerge and challenges that are still maybe there. The first challenge is the institutional setting. So as soon as you start to not only to abolish tariffs, I said that, the word tariffs, and we have a common tariff for the union, and you start to deal with other obstacles to the market for goods and services that are regulation, legislation, standards. You need to harmonize these. And when you have common regulation, common standards, common legislation, you need to implement. And implementation means that to be sure that it is implemented homogeneously, you need sovereign national institutions. So at that stage already, they start to build a court of justice, some other institutions that were dealing with this. Then, and I stop here, but then when the integration became more complicated and went into the issue of labor market, capital market, exchange rate, then this challenge of the institution increased a lot, and you have to make a choice between providing more power to the sovereign national institution, less power to the national governments, and there is where the benefits and costs are very important, and you have seen backlash and difficulties in facing this trade-off.
No, thank you. I want to get back actually to this institutional question and what kind, because ADB has been trying to help with this, but it's a real challenge because it might impinge on the sovereignty of some of the countries. And as we know, Europe itself has had issues, at least one former member country in that regard. And we want to get back to that. But I also wanted to echo your point about the political motivation for this. And as I recall, GMS, the Greater Mekong Subregion Initiative, came out of vast conflicts in Southeast Asia. And as I recall, when it first came about, one of the benefits that people saw was just to have a platform for conversations in a civil way about some of the issues, and they appreciated that. And I think the political point that you raised about how some of these regional initiatives have to arise almost from crisis is so critical. Bruno, if I could turn to you and the ADB. We've been trying to help, and you heard Hao Chi's remarks. And going forward, what are some of the lessons that we need to take on board, especially since, in effect, our business model may not be the most conducive for regional cooperation because we lend to individual countries. We don't lend to groups of countries. And how does that pose challenges for us, and what kinds of things can we do to make sure that our cross-country engagement is as robust as possible?
Okay, thank you very much, Manny. I'm delighted to be on this panel. We are just branding ourselves as the bank that addresses complex problems together. So I think this is a very good setting for putting that into practice with obviously the challenges of regional cooperation and integration. I want to begin with the fact that since its establishment in 1966, regional cooperation and integration has been a hallmark of the Asian Development Bank. And it's taken us through all the way to where we are now, where last year we had our midterm review of our Strategy 2030, our long-term strategy, where we had regional cooperation integration and regional public goods as one of the 5 enhanced areas of focus under that strategy. So very much that commitment is there. Secondly, I wanted to say that when we look at regional cooperation, and I think Sergio mentioned this idea of public good, the bringing together or connecting people, goods, services, ideas across the region, that is already a public good itself, because we're bringing out the importance of that work, and it is essential to understand all the benefits. The simplest examples, if I could mention that, could be many of our Asia-Pacific landlocked countries, or even our sea-locked countries, where the challenges of connectivity are even harder in some ways than some of the other countries that we have. But fundamentally, what we've seen is that in the region, across the many years that since ADB was established, we have seen the very important example of how trade and investment has been a very, very key propeller towards greater development. So we can certainly look at regional cooperation, taking note of the importance of developing the infrastructure, which is a little bit how ADB has focused in terms of the 3 main areas that Ho Chi had explained, so transport, energy, and trade facilitation. And by investing heavily into these areas, we can improve the competitiveness of the region and be able to help to grow the region, develop it faster, be able to create the employment generation, and even overcome many of the poverty constraints that we faced, with trade and investment having brought out tremendous gains in terms of the hundreds of millions of people that have come out of poverty. I think that in terms of one important lesson, and again, the presentation made that very clear, we are as good as the weakest link, if you like. So if we look at transport, we built a lot of the corridors, building roads, railways, linking people to markets, markets to ports, to airports, helping that process go. Energy, similarly, we've been looking at increasing energy access, finding different means to get to access, including transborder electricity agreements. I think on the trade facilitation, that I think it was pointed out by Danucha, it is important that that needs to keep pace with the others, because a lot of times that proves to be the weakest link. And sometimes it's the soft skills, it's not necessarily the hard infrastructure that allows that seamless transborder process to go through. So I think that's an important area. If you allow me just to mention a little bit on the competition, on building competitiveness. Asia Pacific has been a clear example, and we've started with East Asia and then moving into Southeast Asia, of the whole idea of value chains and integration of value chains. The whole process of manufacturing is increasingly integrated through processes of value chains that bring in goods from different countries into other countries. They're processed, they're sent more value addition, then re-exported. That concept is very, very powerful, and it needs very strong regional connectivity, regional cooperation to support that. These are, I think, important lessons, and I'll be glad in the next round to perhaps focus a little bit on some of the new initiatives on regional cooperation to enhance that value addition and obviously bring out much more growth and development out of this idea. It is hard to bring countries together, there's no doubt about it. If you ask any project officer, they would rather do a simple project on a country as opposed to multiple countries. But I think we also need to facilitate that process, and that's also part of the challenge. Thank you.
No, thanks, Bruno. And I'm so glad to hear that ADB is committed to this, no matter how hard it is. We don't do things because they're easy, as somebody famously once said. I wonder if I could turn back to both Ayako and Danuchan on this important issue that everyone has raised on capacity and how to build that up. It's an enormous challenge. And how do we make sure that countries feel they're on a level playing field if they're working at a regional level. So can I start with you, Ayako, and then we'll turn to Danucha.
Sure, thank you for that very difficult question. I mean, understanding our population size as well, there is a great gap between all the islands. So you have an island country with 12,000 people, and then you have another island country with over 6 million people. So of course, capacity levels are different across the different Pacific countries. In terms of regional cooperation in this, I believe the Pacific is also well known for coming together. I think one of the things that ADB could look into is these regional hubs that we often discuss, creating these regional hubs with specialized areas, sectors, especially in the health, education sectors on shared knowledge where we can come together and share the types of technology that's now in the market. Or, for example, if a country is lacking some specialized skills in the medical field, we're able to tap into that regionally. Understanding cultural differences as well is a very sensitive issue. So having a fellow Pacific Islander coming into our very sensitive setting in the medical field, that would also alleviate some of that uncertainty in that area.
Thank you. Dana-chan, I mean, your sub-region also has great diversity and capacity, and what are some of the ways that can be addressed?
Well, thank you. This is the challenge in the region. I mean, because you echo what Ayako said, that there's a difference in size, in population, in economy, the size of economy. But we have to understand the limitation of the country in the region. And in order to be effective regional cooperation, I mean, the country within the region, if we understand each other, then for example, Thailand, over 20 years now that we become a donor country to other the country in the region. We have a loan to Laos, to Cambodia, to help them build the road, build some infrastructure, to help them in terms of capacity building, in education, in terms of community. That's the way we try to lessen the gap between country to country. And however, there's a lot of things to do because as the connectivity is growing, and as Bruno said, that there will be seamless connectivity along the route along the corridor. Some country may be just only the pathway. They don't catch the value added from having that transport connectivity or public goods that transfer between country to country. So we need to find a way to have the measure that they will have the benefit to their country when we do this kind of measure. Yeah, and the other thing is that the challenge in the region is that we have lots of investment already in the region, but how to utilize that investment to create more competitiveness and more capacity to each country. That's a challenge, I think.
No, thanks. And the point you raised about how this asymmetry in capacity, which I think, Chol, you said was a challenge, might be a benefit if those who are perhaps further advanced can actually help the others, pull the others along. But I gather you might have different views about that.
I think it's very important to understand that these days, all the members involved would like to realize some benefits out of this regional cooperation. It's not going to be just one way of in helping each other. And another thing I'd like to raise is that we should understand that there's a big paradigm shift in terms of the trade environment. And even if we are talking about regional cooperation, but we should also look at the global situation as well. And in the past, of course, we saw from the video, some Central Asian countries, they have some new highways built. So I think it was important to have the infrastructure, the hardware, physical infrastructure in the past. They expect that with this new highway, they can export more. I don't know if that's the still case. It's a different situation from the past. We used to have this export promotion growth path, but is WTO working? What is happening in the United States? U.S. is kind of the end point of the global value chain. So we should talk about the resilience in the global value chain, and we should consider all this together when we talk about the regional cooperation in the Asia Pacific. So it's more of the software related, and including policies. So policy coordination, and also new technology. We need the some platform for that. All kinds of things. Of course, ADB is not entitled to solve all these questions and problems, but I think ADB is a great place to raise these issues in the region.
Thank you. Bruno, I wonder if you could respond to that. And I know you're looking forward. How you already raised the point that one of the value added of ADB was an honest broker. And people have raised, I think the panelists have raised this issue of trust and how we, because we're an international player, have a potential to instill that trust. To what extent can we do that and going forward, and what are the challenges for us?
Thank you very much. So very much agree that we always feel that we are the honest broker in the region. We can work very well with all our clients, all our developing member countries and others, to bring out that value addition proposition and make sure that we were able to design ideas into projects, into programs that make sense to you, the clients. We have also a very important convening power, such as this, for example, and that also provides a lot of, I think, good ideas, exchange of ideas to make things move forward. I do take your point that maybe we have exhausted that simpler model of just building infrastructure more and more, and that's probably right in most, if not many, of the regions in the Asia Pacific. And I think that this whole idea of value chain processes need to go forward, including, to your point, new technologies. We're in the process of reaching an agreement with the Korean authorities, looking at how we can take some of the technologies, in this case related more towards climate work, transitioning towards a cleaner energy, and help to craft that into technologies that meet the requirements of our countries. But I did want to bring back the value chain proposition because that's very, very important. Working with value chains, we've got some very interesting work that our private sector department is doing, and that is trade and supply chain finance. So this is important because it allows us to support those countries who want to be more involved in that value chain process, where we can help them to import at a better price with guarantees using our AAA, and help to access finance through letters of credit and other things. That's one example. Another very important example is how Asia Pacific has a very strong competitive advantage in terms of manufacturing, and we see that it will continue to do so. We need to continue to invest, as they're doing. Technologies take on a very important role. But even on things like, and we're talking a lot about climate, even on such matters as helping countries to build resilience, and that will come into competition, because in the end, we will see countries that are able to export based on cleaner energy and many other considerations. But here, I think that what we see is bringing in such things as as critical mineral supply chain, which is very important, again, for the greening of manufacturing. We are looking at how we can support that. Shipping is essential for trade. We're looking now at creating a fund that will help towards the greening of maritime shipping, one of the hardest sectors to abate. So I think this is all part of that policy discussion. This is all part about being more competitive and being able to be more resilient towards some of the challenges in the future. Thank you.
No, thanks. I'll be turning to the audience in about a few seconds, so please keep your questions sharp in a minute. But Sergio, I was wondering if you had any reflections on some of the issues that were raised here on supply chain and what Europe's been able to do, and some lessons that Asia can take on board.
On supply chain, yes, that I think once at the end of the 60s, basically, Europe achieved a common market for goods and services. Then, as I mentioned, the issue of labor market and free movement of people are raised. Of course, if people move and you don't have free movement of capital, you may have some unexpected or maybe expected problems, like people move to the regions where the wages are higher, and the wages regions where the wages are lower remain low. There may be an issue of affordable housing in certain regions. So you need to liberalize or to create also a common market for capital. And this is what Europe started to do in the 70s and 80s. And then is when firms invest in other countries, companies become increasingly European. There are mergers, and of course these mergers and acquisition are also regulated at the supranational level, and then this is also a supranational competition policy as when you reach this stage. So this is more or less and in this story again, I want to stress the issue of national government power and supranational was very important, critical, and if you don't have this, you don't have the same power at the supranational level to address the unexpected effects or the inequalities and so on, then you may have some problems.
I'm glad you raised that, because in fact, it's one of the questions that have come up from the audience in the chat. So I'll first go to the pigeonhole, then I'll turn to people on the floor for questions. There are a couple, and one is exactly this. That point that Sergio raised is when you have countries competing from the region for Western investment, does that trump any kind, sorry, pardon that word. Does that, in fact, supersede any attempts at regional cooperation if they're really competing hard for Western investment? And what are ways to get around that? And the other question is about how is the regional cooperation being affected by rising geopolitical territorial disputes and refugee issues? So just a couple of questions from the chat, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. So anyone wants to tackle those two questions? Any remarks? Joel.
I think it's kind of natural to compete for the investment, right? I think it's a good competition, and it helps bring those member countries upgrade their systems, because in order to attract more investment from outside, your system should be, upgraded and more business friendly. And it's not only good for the investment coming in, foreign investment coming into your country, but also it promotes domestic investment as well. So I think that's there should be the facilitator rather than the obstacle to the regional cooperation or integration.
Danchan, I wonder if we could tackle this issue. I mean, GMS is a region where, in fact, you had a lot of political and armed conflict before, and refugee issues, and that it was able to resolve that. And what are some of the ways that that was done there?
Oh, that's quite a difficult question. When you're dealing with but luckily, I mean, at present, there's not the conflict much in the region, but only our neighboring country. I mean, on the western country of Thailand. But what we're dealing with that is that we use the humanitarian measure to deal with it. We have them a place to like a shelter for them when they move from the conflict. And but you need to understand the what happened in that country. That they not fight every time, but there's a fight from time to time, and people tends not to move from their country to Thailand and stay here. They move for a couple weeks, and then when the situation easing, they just go back to their country. That's one thing. But that's what we are dealing right now. But what I want to echo what Kun Chong said, that the regional integration is very important. I mean, given the current situation of what happened in the world now, we need to strengthen the regional integration. The intra-regional trade will be very important for each country at the moment and in the near future. But what we need to do is that we need to understand that within the regional cooperation, there are competition between country to country within the regional cooperation. And that's what we have to do, not to make the situation worsen. We need to do some kind of a discussion and eliminate what kind of NTB within the region as much as possible in order to I mean, like, how can I say, it's like we need to have some kind of resiliency within the region.
Thank you. Bruno, you wanted to add something?
Sure. Maybe taking from what Sergio was saying, in the case of Europe, it was in some ways, an imperative to avoid conflict, to avoid killing each other. So I think that the principle here is that through regional cooperation, through what I was saying, connecting people, ideas, goods, services, we realize that the ties that bind across our countries are much greater than the ties that separate us. And I think that's a fundamental, again, public good nature of regional cooperation. I think also as countries grow wealthier, the cost of conflict becomes much greater. So again, I think these are two important imperatives that drive this work.
What I hear you saying, all of you, is that, of course, you're never going to get rid of competition. Everyone's going to be competitive. But we want a level playing field.
Yeah, can I see that's a very important point. Going back to the issue of foreign investment, competition for foreign investment. I agree, it's competition for foreign investment is good as far as you want to attract investment in less developed regions. And this is what even national country of middle size or big size do, right? What you don't want is unfair competition. And this is where the sovereign national institutions come when you have the same competition policy, where you have the same standard, the same regulation, then the unfair competition is limited. Not eliminated, but is limited.
Thank you. Okay, let's take some questions from the floor. Please, over here. Please identify yourself and ask the question to any of the panelists. Yeah. So we'll have 1, 2, 3. We'll take one round, please.
My name is Arjun Goswami. I work for a law firm in India on public policy. I used to work in ADB some years ago. So I'll take Danucha's 3 C's and give a 3 C's question. 3 parts. First part, Danucha, Bruno, non-tariffs are more important than tariffs? Media headlines are screaming tariffs. What I'm hearing from you is that non-tariff barriers is where you want to focus. Is that correct? 2, on connectivity, Ayoka and Chul, are we in ADB on the wrong thing in the sense that when we're thinking about connectivity and we say that battle has been won, all the data flows through subsea cables, 90%. How are we protecting those cables? How are we managing that? Is that an area that we should be investing in beyond the sub-regions? Third part, Sergio, community, right? There's a huge Brussels effect around the world. People look at the EU and say it's got strong institutional structures and so on. But at the same time, there is concern as to whether the kind of laws and regulations that are coming top-down, AI, GDPR, they're too heavy. They're strangling innovation. Is that what happens when you have supranational institutions?
Okay, thank you. We'll take 2 more questions. There was one here. Yes, please.
Yes,
and then one there.
Thibaut Mourgue from World Association of PPP Units. I wanted to ask the panelists how they see the role of regional PPPs as a way to strengthen cooperation, because PPPs can help to consider other countries not necessarily as only as competitors, but also as partners to build long-term relationships, and also to harmonize investment on regulatory framework. And I'm not thinking only of traditional PPPs in transport or energy, but also in the new areas such as AI, where it would be very important to strengthen and harmonize operations in this sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Over here, please.
Thank you. My question is addressed to Sergio and Bruno. The moderator earlier mentioned that...
Can you identify yourself, please?
Huh?
Can you identify yourself?
My name is Yue Bingzang. I'm a regional cooperation specialist from ADB. My question is addressed to Sergio and Bruno. The moderator earlier mentioned that EU could probably be regarded as one of the best examples of a regional integration. Mr. Arjun Goswami just now also asked a question about institutions. EU adopted a very institution-heavy approach, but relatively speaking, the ADB adopts a much less institution-heavy approach. ADB's approach is bottom-up, project or program-driven. So my question is, what are the key factors that have caused this difference? And also, how would you compare the 2 modalities of regional integration in terms of effectiveness? Thank you.
Thank you. And one last one for this round over here, please. Thank you.
My name is Keung. I'm a retired economist from ADB. And I just have one comment, and then I leave it to the panelists to reflect. There is one abnormal feature in Asian economy is most of the Asian economies are export-oriented, but they are closed economy. So I give you the example of Vietnam export. The openness of Vietnam is 200%, meaning that the trade, the export is double than the GDP. But Vietnam is a closed economy. So that feature actually leading to the situation that the share of GDP of Asian countries, like I'm talking about East Asian only, now around 32% compared with 11% of the US. So actually the intra-trade in Asia, ASEAN for example, only 23% for 4 decades, and in East Asia around 40% also for 3 decades. So how can a region with a huge share of GDP in the global economy, while the US is declining? And how can the Asian economies are export-oriented, but still very much closed? We're talking about all of the markets, financial market, capital market, health sector, education sector, even tourism. Most of the countries in Asia are closed. So how ADB can help to open up the Asian market when we're talking about regional cooperation?
Okay, thank you. I think there are questions for all the panelists in this one. So we'll start with, there's one more? Sorry, I can't see. Sorry, please.
Thank you, you're very kind. My name is Sulina Abdullah, and I'm from the International Telecommunication Union. Thank you very much to the first, to the distinguished lawyer who asked the question about submarine cables. I was about to ask the same thing. Actually, it's about 99% of global traffic that flows along those submarine cables, and we've just embarked upon a very big initiative to bring together the submarine cable owners, policymakers and such, to actually talk about how we're going to keep these cables resilient and protect them. So I'm keen to know whether ADB is also going to invest in this and how you can come on board to help us. Secondly, the digital economy, from our research, is the one that's growing. And I note an absence of that discussion on the digital economy and the barriers and how to unlock that. And I'd be keen to know how ADB is going to do that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we'll save the ADB for last in the responses. So first I'll turn over to Danachan, then Ayako, especially on the undersea cable issue.
Well, in response to the remarkable question from the distinguished lawyer, then, well, you asked about we need the focus on, we will focus on the NTB, right? Well, I mean, within the region, I have to say that even though we have a free flow of goods and services, but still there's some kind of NTB within the region. As I mentioned earlier, that there's a measure. For example, we need to exchange the truck at the border due to the different side of driving from country to country. That's one thing. The other thing is like the limitation of the truck that goes through each country. There's a limitation on that. So that's a thing that we in the future we need to try to reduce that as much as possible. As I mentioned that I don't know whether the situation of global trade will be different from at the present and in the future, what kind of the global trade will look like. But the intra-trade in the region will be a kind of the things that we need to be focused on as a kind of how can I say, the lifeboat kind of thing before we adjust ourselves to match the new scheme of global trade that will occur in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yako.
Thank you, and thank you for that very difficult question. I will admit I'm not an expert in that area, but I can just share some of the steps that my country is taking in our efforts in reforming our digital frameworks. So there are currently legislations being looked at on how to secure our data, but also we just established a national security office who is also overseeing that and is currently in discussions and working with the United States government on how to protect our data. But in terms of the submarine cable, I'll just share just how reliant we are on that connectivity. One of our urban centers, Ibai, on Kwajalein Atoll, experienced a blackout because the cables were cut by accident. We don't know how. But for the longest time, we were not able to reach them on internet. They did not have any internet connectivity, but as well as telephone. We are fortunate that we do have Starlink operating in the RMI, although on a roaming platform, because again, our laws are not allowing them to provide services there as a normal customer. And so with these issues that we're continuously facing, and with these new technologies coming out, we're seriously looking at reforming our legislative frameworks to ensure that we're able to bring in more technology to connect us better.
And I suppose as these small countries have to deal with these gigantic companies, that's where institutions like ADB could actually help to support.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what assistance ADB can provide.
We'll save him for last. Chol and Sergio, any reflection on some of the issues that were raised?
All right. I mean, as for the connectivity question, I think this issue should not be taken as one individual country's point of view, because it includes a lot of externalities and synergy effects. It's not going to be just for the region and also for the world as a whole. So I think that there should be this kind of the consideration when deciding the investment or not. I mean, as of the connectivity in APEC, we talk about 3 connectivities. One, infrastructure, I mean the physical connectivity, we talked a little bit, and then institutional, and then the people-to-people connectivity as well. I wanted to bring this the demographic change in the region. I mean, especially for the Northeast Asian countries as well. I think it's declining the population, and also the low birth rates and the aging society issue. I mean, it's gonna come to all the countries, with different lag of time. But I think it's not only about the lack of the labor workers. It includes the purchasing power effect, and also that's why we should actually combine this demographic change with the new technology issues. I think the ADB can bring this together, for the digital platform in terms of the people-to-people connectivity issue.
Thank you. Sergio.
Yes, I think I want to answer one on regulation. Of course, there is always a discussion. Is regulation too much, not enough? This is a discussion that's going on in national countries, and of course, is very strong at the European level. We know that markets have failures. We know that the government also fails. So it's a debate that can the regulation at the supranational level be too much because it's supranational? Here, maybe, again, it may be because the bureaucracy is very strong and is less accountable, maybe, politically. But on the other side, you may also see that the supranational institutions are less exposed to vested interests, and also they play is their role to avoid free riding of single countries. On the projects versus institutions, I think that the fact that in Asia there has been more focus on the pricing and the common market, less on regulation and standard. This is, I think, come out from somehow in the evaluation. Is an explanation of the difference. Once you, as I said, you try to have the same regulation, the same standards, you need some form of institutions. And of course, some challenges arise.
Thank you. Bruno, some tough questions for you.
Okay, I think I have to get into almost every question. I'll try to go quickly. Our distinguished lawyer, for full transparency, used to head the regional cooperation integration work at the Asian Development Bank. So he has a very important role in that roadmap. But no, it's a very, very good question, my good friend Arjun. We thought that most of the the tariff work, tariff policies had largely been resolved. but we understand obviously that we have not yet won the battle. There's been a lot of work that has been undertaken in terms of free trade agreements, which, again, the Asian Development Bank was part of. I believe you probably were part of it too, Arjun. And obviously now we're seeing increasingly some of the non-tariff barriers still very much dominant. During the COVID times, a lot of the work that Yubin, who's also a key our regional cooperation integration spokesperson, he was supporting a lot of measures, including such things as phytosanitary standards that countries wanted to close in the fear of further extension of COVID-19. So yes, we need to continue to work on tariffs and on non-tariff barriers in a big way. Just very quickly, when I was a young lad, and we're bringing now the EU, I remember I'm from Spain, going from Spain to France, and we had to change trains at the border because of the gauge, the railway gauge. And that goes back to the Napoleonic Wars. So think of that as a non-tariff barrier.
I didn't think you were that old, Bruno.
I wanted to pick up quickly on the point of PPPs. A lot of the work that we've done, certainly in India, and we were part of that, in terms of the corridors, the road networks, they were done under PPPs. So that was a very clear example of how PPPs deserves a very important role in this work. As you say, it's not necessarily limited to transport and energy, and we can certainly do much more because that brings in some ways the public and the private, which we need more of to help develop this agenda. Yubin, just very quickly, one reading is that the EU integration work was very importantly driven by an economic but also a political argument. I think in the context of Asia-Pacific, it's been much stronger, the economic argument than the political argument. And so in some ways, that can explain a little bit how the institutions have not had the same role as to what happens going forward. We don't know, but obviously the economic imperative remains very strong. On Kwong's point, I think that most Asia-Pacific economies, certainly from East Asia, Southeast Asia, are seen as small open economies in the traditional economic models. And that has been price takers, that has been allowing countries to compete internationally, and that's in some ways the drive that has helped Asia-Pacific become that competitive force in the manufacturing sector. Other countries may be a little bit more closed, but obviously that's some lessons that we can take forward. My final point, Salima, you made a very important point. I talked about connecting services. Digital is a very important part of that. We have invested in the past in submarine cables, which I believe, unless someone corrects me, was to Cook Islands, if I'm not mistaken. So that's one example. We know that new technologies, the Starlink, can also in some ways address some of these shortcomings in the past. So that is a very important linkage that we need to continue to work in. I had mentioned at the beginning, we have 5 areas of enhanced focus under our midterm review strategy 2030. One is digital transformation. And I think and this is an area that we need to build more investments into. Digital public infrastructure is one of the components under that work, and that will be something very, very important for us to bring further connectivity going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Are there any burning questions or issues before I turn to the panel for any last words they might want? If you would have about 15 seconds each for any last words you may want. But any other questions that anyone want to raise at this point? Okay, if not, maybe I can just give some quick reflections, 15, 20 seconds max from each of you going forward. Danichan.
Well, actually, I have to thank the ADB that helped support the GMS Corporation for over 30 years now. I think we wouldn't have been advanced as today if we don't have a support from the ADB. Yeah, thank you very much. But there's a lot of challenge in the future that still needs support. Okay.
Thank you. Ayako?
Thank you. I would like to echo my colleague here. Yes, thank you to the ADB for your continuous support. And I understand that you're taking our concerns and our questions, our needs into action. So I just wanted to say we're grateful for a new addition to the Pacific Department by adding a regional cooperation focal person there. And we truly look forward to working with this person. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to thank ADB for working hard and being there. and for inviting me. I have one suggestion for the future meetings. As I mentioned, the issue with the aging society is there are growing portion of the older people in population. The issue is that the older people are usually less adjusting to the new technology, or the less able to adapt new technology and so on. So when we need the more creative solutions, I think we should invite more of the young people to the meetings. I'm still young, so if you call me, I'll still come. But younger generations can come and contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Ouch. Sergio.
So it will be my last panel. But we said that I attended the seminar, the IMF ADB seminar before this one, and it came out how now in this new world where globalization is still well alive but is changing, the role of regional cooperation is increasing. And I very much agree with Bruno. Competitiveness is important. Any country can join another one and make a market a little bit larger and gain some competitiveness. But what is really important is the identification of a common public good and the political will.
Thank you very much. My thoughts exactly. Bruno, last remarks.
Let me begin by saying that post the Napoleonic Wars, I was a young professional at one point in time. I wanted simply to say that regional cooperation is always, regional cooperation integration is always a work in progress. It's open regionalism that we espouse, and that we need to continue to work together in partnership with our clients, with our countries, and if we can foster that trust and be able to deliver on those partnerships, I think we can still create much more value in terms of the regional cooperation integration agenda.
Thank you very much. And I think one key takeaway here is that ADB will continue working in this space in the future, but it will also develop an Asian way. It will learn from Europe, but they will not be Brussels sprouts going forward. And that is something that we all look forward to. So please join me in thanking a magnificent panel for a wonderful conversation, very informative.